Hi, I'm Harold Bell, and this is the Legends of Inside Sports and the Way We Work. Well, this is a very special program, and I often think how blessed I have been, and I think about the man, how I cried that I had no shoes, and I think about the man who had no feet. So during Thanksgiving 2018, I took the opportunity to think about how blessed I've been despite the obstacles that have been placed in my path. My first blessing is my wife, Hattie T. We celebrate 50 years of marriage the weekend following Thanksgiving. Despite the envy, jealousy, and player hating found among blacks, is often the result of a plantation mentality that we cannot seem to shake. In 2018, we have encountered racism in every arena, especially the criminal justice system as it relates to police brutality. Unarmed black men and boys are being shot and killed at record rates. Instead of a rope, the new lynching is a bullet. There is no economic relief as redlining continues at our local banks. In 2018, as we fight for equal pay for women, a black man in America earns half the salary of a white man. And when there are gains like affirmative action, they throw us a curve and make a white woman a minority. For example, affirmative action now ensures that women and minorities have equal access to education opportunities. Yet, ironically, since affirmative action was first implemented, the people suing for discrimination as it relates to the academic admissions process are white women. White women are the biggest winners, which means that the white man wins the lottery because he goes to sleep and wakes up with his woman. The handwriting was on the wall for President Donald Trump. In 2014, the Supreme Court struck down limits on federal campaign donations. And that is why there will never be an even playing field for people of color. We say money is the root of all evil. The evidence is clear. To ensure their legacy, they have Clarence Thomas and now Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court. In a recent rally in Mississippi, Cindy Hyde Smith said if she was invited to a public hanging, she would be on the front row. This was said after a supporter had endorsed her run against former Agricultural Secretary Mike Espy. Espy's run against Cindy Hyde Smith just got a little more complicated. President Donald Trump has decided to go to Mississippi and support Cindy Hyde Smith. Pro Sports even showed it didn't have a clue when it came to Mississippi politics. Major League Baseball contributed $5,000 to the Smith Hyde campaign, but now it has done an about face and asked that she return the donation because they said they were not aware of the statement that she made about a hanging in Mississippi. You know, sports media is my chosen field, and I still say pro sports are the last plantations. I remember in the early 70s, my white colleague and friend, Frank Pastor, who was a regular on Inside Sports. It was halftime at an NBA Bullets game at the Capitol Center in Landover, Maryland. We noticed there was a dividing line between blacks and whites at the press table. Blacks and whites were all seated on one side of half court. Blacks were seated on the right and whites were seated on the left. Frank and I were staying together at the top of the arena, waiting for a timeout or a foul so that we could return to our seats. In the meantime, we decided to switch seats and integrate the press table, and the league quietly followed our lead. I don't compare our accomplishment to that of Claudette Colvin, who refused to give up her seat on a segregated bus in Montgomery, Alabama. On March 2nd, 1955, she was arrested for not giving up that seat. This was 9 months prior to Rosa Parks' famous arrest for the same offense. Pro sports media press tables in 2018, there has been very little change. Take it from me, there has been very little change. Don't let your eyes fool you. Blacks today are seated along with whites at Wizards games, but these brothers have no clue how they got there. Guys like Wilbon, Aldrich, Brown, Lee, Chris, Doc, John, etc., most think they are smarter, and that's how they got there. I got news for them. You were chosen because you are considered safe. Your careers have proven you go along to get along. For example, as I look around, there are blacks working for so-called major media who are given prime seating because they work for media outlets that can pay for them to travel to games out of town and therefore become beat reporters for the Wizards. That means they are in-house. That means they are in-house ends. That's what they are. They don't have a clue who set the table for them, and they could care less. I have seen the good and the bad and the ugly in the NBA, especially with the Bullets Wizards. There were former players like Bobby D, Coach Bernie Bickerstaff, Dave Bing, Ron Strickland, Gilbert Arenas, and now player John Wall, who they're calling a party animal. Man, you couldn't trust these guys as far as you could throw them. None of them. John Wall is self-destructing, cussing out coaches and his teammates. You know, he's making $32, $38 million a year, so I guess he thinks he can say whatever he wants. But also, guess what else is happening? The new wizard, Dwight Howard, just recently joined the team. Well, he was outed on social media this past weekend on Saturday. He was called out by his transgender girlfriend. The girlfriend said he was threatened to kill her if she didn't sign a non-disclosure form. So the Wizards are really self-destructing from top to bottom. You know, this was Saturday when this stuff hit social media. Today is Monday, and I have seen nothing about it in the newspaper, on ESPN, with Big Mouth Stephen A. Smith, who knows everything, but suddenly he's silent. Suddenly he's silent. Check out Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon this evening and see if they say anything about it. See if David Aldridge writes it up in The Athletic, this new subscriber newspaper. I mean, you can't believe anything that these guys say. You really can't. You know, in 2017, I uncovered a scam involving NBA players like Tony Parker and Kawhi Leonard of the San Antonio Spurs, Carmelo Anthony of the New York Knicks, and Chris Paul of the LA Clippers. The players had been duped into investing their monies into the scam documentary movie titled The First to Do It, based on the life story of NBA pioneer Earl Lord. I mailed letters to Greg Popovich and Commissioner Adam Silver, bringing the scam to their attention. I did receive a response from NBA Commissioner Dave Silver, and this is what he said. This is a letter I received on May 26, 2017. It said, "Dear Mr. Bell, thank you for sharing your concerns with me regarding The First to Do It, the documentary on Earl Lord. Preserving and honoring our history is very important to the NBA. And during NBA All-Star Weekend in February, the National Basketball Players Union hosted Earl Lord's family and other guests for a screening of the film. Thanks again for taking the time to reach out to me. Sincerely, Adam. And I got to give him credit for at least responding to my letter. And guess what? The Earl Lord documentary disappeared. Disappeared. That's right. I can't say that Leonard or Tony Parker or Anthony or Chris Paul got their money back, but I know the movie never showed on the screens. But my question is, where were the experts like Aldred, Wilbon, Lee Brown, and Stephen A. Smith, among others? I know for a fact Aldred and Wilburn were looking the other way, and these same guys were in the neighborhood when Gilbert Arenas was considering a shootout with one of his teammates over a gambling debt. They are considered major media, beat reporters, in-house Negroes that should have known what was going on. Their credentials in the sports arena and in the community are pale in comparison to mine. First, they don't have any common sense or street sense. Check their backgrounds, and you will see their knowledge of the inner city was when their high school took them on a sightseeing tour. They come out of private schools and college nowhere near the inner city. Book sense is great, but you cannot run to a book to get the answer when a player is carrying a gun looking to do harm to a teammate. But you cannot tell them they are not expert. For example, they would think nothing of escorting a brand new player to the city, to a youth center to talk with incarcerated youth about the consequences of their bad behavior. The bottom line is the blind leading the blind, and it's our youth who come up on the short end. Wizards' newly acquired Dwight Howard has been accused of threatening to kill his transgender girlfriend. Do you think he should be going to a youth center to talk to our young people? All I can do is tell you is to stay tuned. My domain has been youth centers and schools in the District, Maryland, and Virginia, my whole adult life, talking to young people who resembled my early troubled years of growing up in a Northeast housing project. My middle school principal warned my mother, if I didn't get my act together, I was not going to live to get out of high school. Against all odds, I became a legendary DC athlete, youth advocate, sports talk show host. And every sports talk format you see or hear is a copy of my original Inside Sports. And no one will ever ID me as a cheerleader and a kisser of rings and ass. The question I would like to ask Aldred, Brown, Wilbon, Walker, Thompson, what is in your wallets? More than likely a business card that says he's safe. The public relation guys in the NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, and National Hockey League, they are overwhelmingly white. And they're so busy being cheerleaders and assigning members of their staff to guide the players, they will hire these gophers on their staff who have never known the agony of defeat and have never been in a winner's circle. Their main attribute is to go along to get along. And when all hell breaks loose, they wonder why. The PR guys in charge use these brothers to cover up their racist offenses and will say, I can't be racist. Look at all the brothers on my staff. They don't have a clue. And that is one of the reasons why I was encouraged to write my own book, to tell of my history and relationships with some of the greatest athletes and entertainers of our time, the legends of Inside Sports. My walk through American sports history and black history with champions and chumps. And you can go on blackmeninamerica.com, click on my name, scroll down to see the reviews, and purchase my book. This is volume 1 of 4 books that will be coming out. And I tell you, It is a masterpiece and it's great because it's different from anything that you will ever read. Well, my blessings are many. I think about it that I was the first black to host and produce my own radio sports talk show. I was the first black uh, to host and produce my own television special on WRC TV4 in November 1975. My special guest was the greatest Muhammad Ali. I was the first black to co host the Washington Post sports talk show on Comcast television. I've been a freelance writer for the Afro American, New York, Amsterdam, Washington Post, and Washington Times newspapers. So I have been around. I was one of the top writers for the Bleacher Report, now seen on national television, owned by CBS. When I dropped the blog on the Two Faces of John Thompson and got 55,000 views in 3 days, they could not handle the truth as it related to one of their sacred cows. I walked away. The Bleacher Report has deleted all the awards and recognition I received for having one of the most widely read blogs. After stealing my tag, Inside Sports, the Washington Post has deleted all the stories written about my trailblazing sports talk shows. I saved most of them, and I have them in my archives. The community reach back efforts by pro athletes today all started with me here in the nation's capital. They are all following my lead when it comes to giving away turkeys and toys. Peter Green and I started a turkey giveaway. I never forget that. That a white guy over at the market in Northeast off Florida Avenue gave Petey 50 turkeys. And Petey called me and said, "Man, I got 50 turkeys. I don't know what to do with them." Well, he did know what to do. He gave them away to senior citizens, and I took two myself. I started my own toy party giveaway in 1968, right after the riots. This year marks 50 years, the 50th anniversary of my Kids in Trouble toys for needy children. In the meantime, the truth is being assaulted, suppressed, and challenged by folks who would not recognize the truth if it slept in bed with them. This Thanksgiving, I realized how truly blessed I was. My next blessing was when one of my young men who I touched along the way in this game called life gave me a shout out on Facebook. He said, "Harold Bell, you are the true example of what God has put on earth to represent his blessing that he instills in a man and woman that lives amongst his people. Congratulations. Many thanks for staying the course and continue the journey. Stay blessed." These were the words of Reverend Joel During. Wow, man. Joe, you blew me, you blew me away, my brother. Thank you so much. I have two other young men in the ministry, Reverend Salim Edwards and Reverend Ricky Williams. These two brothers have been blessings in my life, and amen. I can't thank them enough for all that they've done for me. And then there is Lonnie Taylor. He is from the hood also. Lonnie was the first black to become chief of staff for a white congressman on Capitol Hill. Now, I'm on Capitol Hill one day in the 80s, I think it was 1989, and I been invited to the Heritage Foundation. They're having a forum, and the guest speaker is Jack Kemp, the Secretary of HUD. So I go in, and who one of the first people I see is Lonnie Taylor. And he comes over and shakes my hand, and we start talking about the Hillcrest Children's Center Saturday program and where are some of the guys now. Well, Lonnie and I talked, and he passed his card on to me and said that he was working on Capitol Hill. That's all I knew, right? So I gave him my card. So about a week later, I get this letter from the Congress of the United States House of Representatives, August 1st, 1989. It says, "Dear Mr. Bell, it was good seeing you at Secretary Jack Kemp's address sponsored by the Heritage Foundation. As I stated then, as a former resident of the 14th and W Street area, I owe you many thanks for the things which you did on behalf of the city's youth. Believe me, Hillcrest Children's Center Saturday program often brings back fond memories. You should take pride in the fact that your example of selflessness continues in so many of us. Thanks for all you've done and all you do. Sincerely, Lonnie P. Taylor, Chief of Staff of Jack Buechner, Member of Congress. Wow. Yeah, that blew me off my feet. It really did, man. That's something that I had to say. And like I say, the blessings keep coming. And I stop and think of how many sports writers and talk show hosts you know have campaigned successfully to have two pro athletes inducted into their Hall of Fames after they were blackballed. Now you guys remember, all I ever been on was AM radio. That was the platform that I had. And you know, that didn't reach a whole lot of people, right? I didn't have the platform like James Brown or Michael Wilbon or John Thompson, David Aldridge. I had an AM platform, man. And I think about how these guys were blackballed. And I think about one of the great athletes that come out of Washington, D.C., the great Willie Wood, that played for the Green Bay Packers. Willie was all pro. Vince Lombardi, his coach, called him his coach on the field. And while all the great Packers were being inducted into the Hall of Fame, Willie wasn't. And we couldn't figure that out. But what happened, Willie went on to take a job as assistant coach with the San Diego Chargers. And Willie, revealed that there was a drug culture among the players. And they blackballed him for that. Well, Willie and I got together with Dick Heller, longtime sports columnist for the Washington Times and a dear friend of both of ours. And we started a campaign to get Willie Wood inducted into the Hall of Fame. And we successfully campaigned for Willie and got him inducted in 1989. Willie came on Inside Sports to thank me personally. Class act. I'll never forget that. He came on the show. I didn't even know he was coming. And then there's NBA pioneer Earl Lord, who grew up in Alexandria, Virginia, right across the bridge from Washington, D.C. Earl Lord was the first black to play in the NBA, in an NBA game in 1950. Not only was he the first black to play in a game, but he also went on to win an NBA championship with the Syracuse Nationals. Well, the NBA never recognized those accomplishments by Earl Lord. So I got with my dear friend, my man, my godfather, the great Red Auerbach, and I told Red, Earl deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And he said, okay, let's do it. And so we campaigned for Earl, and he was inducted in 2003 in the NBA Hall of Fame, thanks to Red Auerbach. So, you know, that's what makes me realize, despite the player haters and the naysayers, man, I've come a long ways. I want to say, how many people can say they helped get NFL great Jim Brown out of jail, or several other high-profile playground basketball legends of D.C. who ran afoul of the law? How many can say, I sat on the mountaintop with Muhammad Ali? I've been there and done that. But there's one more blessing that I got to tell you about. That's my man, my homeboy, Marvin Gaye. Look at him right behind me. Well, Marvin's photo will appear on the postage stamp, the United States postage stamp, this year, going into Black History Month. Marvin was, a great human being, man. You hear all that stuff about it, but he was such a good human being. Not only a great entertainer, but he was a great human being. See, Marvin and I met when I was in high school. I grew up in a Northeast housing project called Parkside. And I remember we would be out there shooting dice at night. And the doo-wop crew would come up, Bess and Neil, and Marvin was with them. And they'd be singing doo-wop while we'd be shooting crap. They'd be the entertainment and the lookout for the cops, you know? And I remember one Sunday going to church, Mount Airy Baptist Church. My great grandfather laid the first brick to build Mount Airy Baptist Church, located at North Capitol and L Street Northwest. He laid the first brick. And we went to church one Sunday morning, and there was Marvin in there with his father. His father, they were the guests of my great uncle, Earl Tyler. He brought the choir down, and they were saying, Marvin spotted me. He almost had conniption. He started putting his, he just put his finger up in his mouth, telling me, don't say nothing. And of course, that time I understood what was going on after we went downstairs and had dinner after church. His father did not like him singing doo wop and the devil's music, as they called it. But Marvin and I went on to become great friends. And Marvin was singing the spring festivals at Spingarn High School, where I was attending. And then when I moved to Simple City, 58th and Blaine, Marvin moved right down the street from me. He moved in with a friend of mine who used to babysit me named Geraldine Peasy Adams. Peasy used to babysit for my mother. And Marvin was having a problem with hip hop, so he moved down there with Geraldine. He had met Geraldine in Parkside those times I was telling you he was coming out singing. And Marvin and I would meet at the bus stop. He'd be going back up, heading back up to Cadoza. I'd be heading up to Spingarn. And I remember one morning he told me, man, he said, man, I'm getting ready to get out of here, Harold. I think I'm going to go on into the service. And Marvin always wanted to be an athlete, man. You know, he admired me being an athlete. And I think he came to see me a couple of times because he had to be in it because of the description he gave of the games that I played in. But I always wanted to be a singer. I thought he had the best of it. But Marvin, of course, went on in the Navy or the Air Force. I can't remember which one now. But I didn't see Marvin again until years later up on the 7th at the Howard Theater. He was hanging out, I was hanging out, I was back home. And he said, man, I'm home now. I'm free. I'm free. I'm going to pursue my music. And that's what he did. And the rest is history. The rest is history. I didn't see Marvin again, man, until he broke out. And I went to Detroit to cover the Tommy Hearns Papino Cuevas welterweight championship fight. So I had a couple of numbers for Marvin, and I called all around trying to catch up with him, and I couldn't. I couldn't catch up with him. So my buddy was the FBI director of Detroit at the time, Wayne Davis. So I called Wayne. I said, "Look, Wayne, I got some tickets, man, to Tommy Hearns fight tonight." He said, "Okay." So Wayne and I went, great fight. Tommy won his first championship, and we had a ball. And who shows up but Marvin Gaye after the fight, apologizing? But that was Marvin, man. Marvin never forgot who he was and where he came from. Never forgot, man. Next time I saw Marvin, it was at a fight again. This time it was in Las Vegas, and I was traveling with the Sugar Ray Leonard crew, right? I'm part of the entourage. So we go into the hotel and go to the weigh-in, and who's in the weigh-in but Marvin? Marvin saw me and screamed, Harold, what you doing here? What the hell you doing in Las Vegas? I said, man, I'm with Ray, man. He said, well, after Andy knocked him out tonight, you gonna be with me. So I laughed, and sure enough, the next night, Marvin got up in the ring, did the national anthem. Before Marvin could get down the steps good, Ray had knocked Andy out the first round. I said, "Oh my God, man!" And Marvin and I had planned to have breakfast the next morning, but I said, "Man, I know I ain't gonna hear from no Marvin." He was devastated. He was devastated. So I'm lying in the bed. It's about 7:30, and the phone rings. And on the other end is Marvin. Marvin said, "Come on, man, we're supposed to have breakfast this morning." I said, okay. So I met him over Caesar's Palace, and we spent 2 hours by ourselves, man. Just talking about old times and him asking me, what was I doing? What did I want to do? I told him I was thinking about running for city council against this guy, H.R. Crawford. And he said, well, Harold, if you run, I'll come home and help you. And he gave me two or three more numbers where I could catch him. And then he made arrangements for me to go see Diana Ross, who was appearing at Caesar's Palace at that time. That was 1979. I had front row seats, man, for me and George Knox. And Marvin came and met me at the box office, got me the tickets, but he decided to hang out in the back. I knew he was hanging out because when Donna Ross came out and started singing, she said, I know my baby's back there somewhere, Marvin Gaye. And everybody turned around looking for Marvin. But man, Marvin kept it real, man. He kept it real. And I had planned on calling because I was going to run against H.R. Crawford, 1983. I never forget it. I was driving over to Southeast Community Hospital to see my brother. Earl had been in a terrible automobile accident. He was paralyzed. And I was riding down Southern Avenue. It was a hot day because I had the windows down. Didn't have air conditioning in the car. And I was listening to one of the, must have been WOL, man, and came across the airwaves that Marvin had been shot and killed in LA by his father. And I had to pull over. It was very emotional, man. I had to pull over, man. Marvin's like a brother to me. He was like a brother. Never forget him, man. Gone too soon. Gone too soon, man. That's all I can say. Well, that's going to be it for the legends of Inside Sports and the way we were. And I just want you to remember as you head out of here that every black face you see is not your brother. And every white face is not your enemy, despite the racism that's going on. There's some good white folks out there. Believe me, I know, or I would not be sitting where I'm sitting today. Until next time, I'm Harold Bell, and you can color me gone.